Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SoFi Weekly. Roy hasn't shown up yet. And even Tevis was a little bit late. Tevis, how you doing, bud?
Every week it's somebody new who's late.
Everyone
Last
but
week
me.
was
Isn't that funny how that happens?
you were late for like a full year straight. So
Well, welcome back. You're back to the real bricks.
yeah, I'm severely jet lagged, but I am here, and
What time did you get back?
I got back yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There he is.
Roy the Wonder Boy. How's it going?
All right, how are you guys?
It's not the right mic. He'll figure it out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We got the full crew here finally. Not much news this week, boys. SoFi under $7. Shorts continue to hold up a 17+% short interest. But
good.
Who's buying?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Good. Old Verizon commercial. Yeah, I didn't buy this week. I'm good. Nah, I like what I got. I bought last week, and probably that's my last SoFi purchase. If we get into like the 5s or the 4s, I'll probably buy more there. But I'll probably wait until then.
Sure. Tevis?
Yeah, I bought this week.
Oh yeah?
I bought on Tuesday, and I bought again today. And I'll probably buy next week too.
Did you, maybe this is a weird question. Did you buy it in a corporate account for your today's purchase?
No.
Okay. Because the icon or the notification that you posted, I haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's just because I don't do a lot of moves in that account, but I had the cash, and so I just bought it.
Got you. Well,
It's
cool.
like with some of these accounts that I don't do a lot of moves in, when the cost basis falls under a certain level, it just makes sense for me to buy because I have some accounts have better cost basis than others. And so depending on what the stock price is, I might buy in one versus the other.
All right.
Did you buy?
No, I've not bought SoFi in a little bit. I've been sort of buying Robinhood, Shift4, bunch of other non-fintech names. Oh, congratulations, boys! I can't join you this time. Yeah, I don't know. I've been accumulating other names and enjoying it, loving it. Shift4 is sick. I'm so head over heels for Shift4 right now. Yeah. What are you guys buying aside from SoFi? Anything?
PayPal. I bought over the last 2 weeks a decent amount of PayPal. I've actually bought some Palantir for the first time too. With all the cash that I had, which wasn't much because I'm waiting for stuff to transfer over. I'm mostly fully allocated outside of that large allotment, which will probably take another 3 weeks. It's taken longer than I thought. But we could talk about this elsewhere. But Palantir had the mention of the massive 480 million contract, and after hours it was like doing nothing. I'm like, all right, I'll go ahead and buy, and it went up some from that. Just it's one of those things where it's like, hey, it's a good price for me. I haven't bought Palantir in maybe a year, and so just for you guys, if I stop buying SoFi for a year, it doesn't mean I'm bearish. I just have a good allotment. I'm happy with what I have, and buying more just doesn't make sense to me unless it goes really low. And so Palantir, I'm very, very bullish on it, but I was just like, this is just silly that it's just sitting here, and they landed a $500 million contract and some other smaller ones. And I'm like, absolutely, I'll buy some of that. So a little bit of Palantir, more SoFi than Palantir, and a whole bunch of, a decent amount of PayPal, I would say.
Yeah. Did you see the news today? I think it was yesterday. Another analyst initiated with a buy rating. Dan Dolev put a $90 price target on this stock. It's weird though. He's been all over the map, so I don't know how to feel about his ratings because it was higher before and it was also lower before.
Yeah, I had to read at least part of his note. I don't know his full note. I don't know if it's fuller than what I saw, but I was curious because sometimes analysts just move the price target around based on what they ate for breakfast. Is like, it's a great breakfast, $80 price target, or that breakfast was trash. It was cold. Forget it. Let's sell this stock. But Dolev usually puts reasons. Sometimes I disagree with him. He's always been big on Venmo, more so than branded. And so, yeah, he put some different reasons on like why he was so excited about PayPal. And a lot of that are the first look changes where it's interesting when the first look announcement came out. Remember, Alex Chris said he'd shock the world. And that was misunderstood, I would say, by the market. And even when it was pumping, and you and I were talking about this as like, it's not going to shock the world like on day one. This is like as they execute, they'll shock the world. But the market pumped and then it dumped. It did what it did. Dolev came out and smashed PayPal's price target that he put on that because he's like, hey, there's really nothing new here. There's nothing special at all. And now that they're seeing like that very high conversion rate on the Fastlane product, the advertising vector, I think, I don't know if he actually mentioned that one, but he mentioned a couple of the first look products, and he's seen the light. Like he's seen branded growth. He sees basically every single thing that Alex Chris has mentioned. He's an executor. He's like Anthony Noto. If Anthony Noto says they're going to do something, they're going to freaking do it. Like you can take it to the bank. So
yeah, I don't think Dan mentioned anything about the advertising platform. It's funny because once they, I've been talking about that advertising platform, like not excluding you. I think you've been all over it as well for a long time. But up until they just released that press release with Mark, what is it, Greether?
You always say it wrong, so I'm sure you're saying it wrong this time.
Yeah,
I have to look it up to see it because I always want to say Girther and it's not Girther.
Yeah, Girther sounds better.
Yeah. But from Uber, yeah.
Sounds like an actual last name. But anyway, so up until then, no one was talking about it, even though they announced it a long time ago. And now it's all become the big hubbub that they're going to be, having this massive advertising platform. And it's like, guys, we've been on this. This has been a topic for a while now. So
yeah, Greether. I even spelled it wrong in my post.
I said Greether.
Yeah, you said it right.
I actually did see something weird this week going off of PayPal really quick that I just remembered. Someone sent me, so I don't use Zelle at all. Okay, I'm an American, or sorry, I'm a Canadian.
I hate Zelle.
I don't. So it's a peer-to-peer, transaction thing. But so how does it work for the user? Does the user have to have, let's say, because SoFi just enabled Zelle, do they have to then download a Zelle app as well that connects them? Okay, so that was my understanding. So the UI that SoFi, SoFi has to create the UI to connect Zelle to the rest of the network. Have you guys seen the UI that SoFi created?
I have not, but that's because I freaking hate Zelle, and it's a terrible piece of garbage that no one should ever have to use. But some people insist on using it. I think it's because they don't have to sign up for anything extra. I think it's as simple as that. It is the worst.
I heard it was pretty janky though, the whole experience.
Dude, I have a screenshot. Someone sent me a screenshot. This looks like utter dog shit. I'm sorry, I don't understand how this has been worked on for so long. Like it's been in the works. Look at this. This looks like a kid's VB coding project.
Jesus.
What the heck is that? What is that, dude?
And you know how this works is it's very clunky when you actually use it. So recently, I think it was maybe 2 months ago, we had a garage sale, and so we sold some stuff. I don't know why, but the last 2 times over like 3 years, we've had 2 garage sales. people insist on using Zelle. They don't like using Venmo. They don't like using Cash App. They don't like using PayPal. Garage sellers use Zelle, and it's a pain in the rear end. And so a guy's like, hey, do you take whatever? And I'm like, well, cash is good. Whatever's good. It's like, if I have to, I'll open my freaking Zelle thing up on Wells Fargo. So he opens it up. He finds me. It takes a little while. Probably 5 minutes has gone by. He sends. And he's like, hey, did you get it yet? I'm like, nope, didn't get it. He shows me that it's sent. I'm like, hey, that's great. We'll wait until it comes here. I think one of the items was like, it's $15, whatever, just take it. One of the items was, I think, $100 or something. I'm like, yeah, wait around. Took 15 minutes to get to my account in Wells Fargo from his Wells Fargo account. He was using Wells Fargo too. And it's clunky and it's slow and it has issues. In the past, I was actually, thinking it was really cool like 5 years ago because one of my sons was trying to send me money periodically because he'd buy different things. He didn't have a credit card. And he's like, hey, this is an easy way to do it. No, it was not. Problems every freaking time. He had to go into a physical Wells Fargo branch and they're like, hey, this isn't our problem. Call this number. 6 hours later, and I kid you not, 6 hours later, still unresolved. And my son said, you know what? I'm going to get rid of Wells Fargo and I'm moving over to Axos. He was done with Wells Fargo. He blamed them completely. One more Zelle story. We had to send a payment for, I don't think it was earnest money, but it was something vital to when we bought this house, when we moved down here to Texas. And Zelle was the only thing that they would take for some reason. I was like, hey, I'll write a check. I'll do whatever. Zelle sucks. They're like, no, you use Zelle. Okay, I will. We had so many problems with it. It cost me half a day of work and it almost lost us the house because it's a freaking piece of garbage. And any person that is saying that Zelle is a competitor for Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, I don't know what's wrong with them. Like they need to be checked out.
I
They
think that
need
you've had
counseling.
some.
They need
I
drugs.
think that you've had some very unique bad experiences because there's no way that everyone is having those experiences.
And that's the thing. I talk to so many people and they're like, it's a freaking pile of junk. Like, why do people use Zelle? It's a terrible UI and it's a terrible experience. And that's when it works. And it doesn't always work. Like, dude, Cash App, if you hate PayPal and Venmo, fine. That's fine. You do you. Use freaking Cash App. I'm not invested in Block. It's a good product. Use it. I don't get it.
Dude, someone recently, because I said this in Canada, there's one fintech company that's trying to create their version of that here, which is Wealth Simple. And no one here uses
Well, it's
it.
different. We already have a solution here. That's like, it's
Well, yeah, we have like a Zelle kind of thing where every single financial institution uses Interact. And then so whenever Wealth Simple is like, here, this is a new solution that is very comparable to Cash App. So instead of needing someone's email, you can have a cash tag,
Well, it's a network effect problem, right? Like you can't have the network benefits without having that size unless you have perfect interoperability with all the systems, and it just doesn't work like that.
One thing that's pretty interesting is Cash App has benefited from allowing to send in Wealth Simple's like this too, but you can send someone money without them needing an account. And so they can accept money to an email address. So as long as you sign up for Cash App with that same email address, there'll be money waiting for you. And so they have benefited so much from people sending Cash App like dollars to people that don't have accounts. Well, if you have even $10 waiting for you at this app and they're saying, hey, you know what? Your friend sent you money. You're going to download that so then you can unlock the money. So pretty interesting. They've gotten a lot of customers that way. I don't know what's Ed chat. I was talking. So
it's good stuff. I by the way, I can't reply to you guys tonight. On top of Zelle being terrible, Windows also sucks. Short Microsoft. Not really, but I've installed Linux. This is Linux. It's the third time I've had issues with Windows in the last year just on this computer. I'm tech savvy. I don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. I'm like, okay, it's either buy a whole new unit or if you use freaking Linux. So in order to access the chat, I have to log in. I don't have my phone here. So yeah, It's Angry Roy night, man. This week, I tell you.
Roy's
So,
rage.
This guy said like, you guys aren't annoyed you need to share information with strangers. Isn't that the whole point of those peer-to-peer solutions, is that you don't have to give people personal information? Like I don't know what Zelle asks of you. I assume that it can work with a mobile number, email address, something like that. But
There's two things you can do. The one that I've used, is a QR code. It's clunky. It's not nearly as good as Cash App or Venmo, or even PayPal for that matter. But you can do that, or there's like this ID thing that you can put in, and it's not. I don't think it's an email address. I don't remember what it is. I try to steer clear of Zelle whenever I can. I know there's some fans of Zelle in the chat. I don't know, why. It's probably the same people that love eating grape nuts and love living in Canada. I mean, there's always some people.
do they do like a custom email address? Because I've seen that sometimes as well, where it'll say like, Roy@Zelle.com or something like that.
Maybe you'd have to ask the chat. It's been probably a year since I've used that function.
It allows for transfers, but cuts out that spam.
Tanner, can you throw up my screen? I didn't know this. Did you guys know this? That they're owned by the biggest banks.
Yeah. It's a conglomeration of all of them. That's not actually a private company.
Right. Which is interesting, right? Because I saw this this post on Twitter that Riley put up when SoFi first integrated with Zelle like 2 weeks ago. And it was a slide from ARK Invest's Big Ideas or whatever. And they showed the user base of Zelle versus Venmo versus Cash App. And Zelle just like smokes everybody. And so hearing the experiences being overwhelmingly negative from users made me think like, okay, why is everybody on Zelle if everybody hates being on Zelle? It's interesting that they're like a conglomerate of all the biggest banks out there.
Well, the reason why Zelle, like, I think that at least my understanding is that so many customers were realizing that peer-to-peer networks was the next big thing. And then so all the big banks were like, okay, we're going to lose like crazy if we don't have a solution. So either like we're already part of this big lobbying solution, so why don't we just come together and make sure that we don't fall out of place? And that's why you see them in the transactions being by far the highest players, is because they already have all of the customers. That's why Zelle is very exciting. But now you're seeing like Visa come out and want to connect Cash App to Zelle to PayPal, and so that's even weirder. The what's it called, Visa Plus or whatever. Too many networks now. Got to drop them.
A lot of fans of Zelle in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, you can't think that a network that is by far the largest. I think they have like 100 and something million users, and like well into the 100 millions, is hated by everyone. If the average person had that issue of taking away a half day, Zelle would never be used. I think you've gotten two very unique problems on your hand.
Well, like 5, but yes.
Well, then maybe
and it
it's
could
something
just
wrong
be
with like your identity, where they having a hard time. Like maybe it's not something that is as common.
And maybe it's a Wells Fargo thing.
I think it's like an adoption thing as well. Like, what is the competitive advantage that Zelle offers that these other providers can't offer? Is it
You're already there,
right? So, like, why is Zelle so dominant, or like, why aren't they bleeding market share? Because, like, I mean, yeah, obviously you can have a massive experience that everybody hates, but people still have to use because there's no alternative. Like, I just finished paying off my taxes, and if you go on the Government of Canada's website, you just want to tear your eyes out, but you still have to use it because you can't really, do anything else. But for Zelle, there are alternatives, and so that's like barrier number one. Are there alternatives to use? And if so, then it becomes a level playing field, and you would imagine that they're just losing market share to Venmo, Cash App, or whatever else from a feature set perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, to some degree, I, I think it's the same thing of like talking about Robinhood and SoFi. Like, oh, why are they competing? Well, I think the real competitor is the people that are still not using peer-to-peer networks. Like, I forget what it was. PayPal just recently said. I have it in my notes somewhere. I got to get that Notion, Ask Notion thing, so I can just go through my notes faster. But they were talking about the percentage of the population globally that still doesn't use any digital wallets. And it's something crazy, like 60% have not used it yet. And it just goes to show you that you can talk about Apple Pay and all of these things, but still the percentage that is the largest competitor is the non-participating, portion of the population.
Well,
And so
I think Joshua in the chat just answered the question. If you can throw that comment up, Tanner. He says Zelle is native to the banking app you're using. Cash App and Venmo are not. Many people like myself don't necessarily want their money stored on several different platforms. So it does come back to that fact that it is a conglomerate between the biggest banks out there.
No, of course, but it's over time. Will they like absolutely? That's the answer of why they're so big. But over time, will Zelle eventually lose? I don't know, but that's not going to happen. What I was trying to bring up is that's not going to happen for a very long time because there's still such a large percentage of the population that even needs to get to Zelle in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why so many fintechs are seeking to become that everything app where, people want integration for the most part. Like it's nice. Sometimes you want a little bit of separation for certain accounts, and that's fine. But that's part of the flywheel effect for SoFi. That's why Robinhood, Vlad has certainly been talking about going in that vector. PayPal has in the past, Block as well, the ecosystem of ecosystems. And then, of course, even the X platform is talking about being the WeChat Pay of the West. And that's the dream. I don't know that anybody's going to get there. It seems like, it's nice to have integration, but at a certain point, if you don't trust or have that trust relationship where you want everything to be on that same platform, that's the big issue. A lot of these big banks that, they launch Zelle and maybe they are doing okay with integration of that. They're not fun to be part of. Like Wells Fargo, my relationship with Wells Fargo will probably be over in the next 3. Well, I've got a mortgage through them, but outside of that, it'll be over in about 3 months. So slowly moving things over to SoFi. New payments are going over there. There's always stuff that we forget, so it takes a little while. But I've been with Wells Fargo for 10 years, and I can never say that they've been a joy. Like SoFi, it's awesome. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the app. I'm enjoying how well integrated things are happening. The actual notifications. I know that there's room for improvement on the app, but compared to Wells Fargo, man, like it's amazing. It's just it actually feels like going from my 2011 minivan to that new Tesla or new to me Tesla. It's like, this is awesome. So I know there's other banks, there's other competitors, but people want integration. I don't know that it will happen, fully, but if anyone pulls it off, I really think SoFi, if people have a core banking relationship with people that they trust, they handle tech well, and they're able to integrate and use that flywheel effect across all products, which they're doing, like that's the dream. I'm very bullish on SoFi.
Yeah, but look, on the other hand as well, I think somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading this week where they brought up the fact that it's been a year since SoFi publicly dropped that level 1 options is coming, and they're basically critiquing the fact that how come it's taking so incredibly long for these rollouts. And if the screenshot or the mock-up that Tanner showed us is accurate and the finished product looks like that, then I have some serious concerns about their ability to ship product. And this is coming from somebody with a strong product background. It's like, okay, you can challenge the timelines all you want because you don't necessarily know the back end implications or the effort required or the tech debt that you have to solve. but fuck, man, it's a UI. Like you can at least get that right. Especially when you have a year or 2 years grace period to roll something out. And so that's one point. And then the second point is, why are you announcing these things so far away from the actual rollout? Like generally, I know, like I work in B2B SaaS, and we have clients that they pay subscription. And so they're really demanding in terms of trying to influence our roadmap. And when they can't influence our roadmap, trying to get updates on our roadmap. And so we have a cadence of what do we share depending on where in the roadmap it is. We'll share something at the most 2 quarters out. Usually we stick with 1 quarter out because, it's subject to change. There's all kinds of stuff that can happen, and there's sandbagging that goes on in that as well. Like we'll say something is going to take 2 months when in reality it takes 1 month because we want to account for QA, we want to account for user acceptance testing, all kinds of stuff. But a year, like, come on.
Anthony Noto is challenging the Jeff Bezos thing. He wants to overpromise and underdeliver, but no. In all reality, I think the big umbrella here across all of the deliverables is: are they waiting, or is there some sort of change of their just full on? Like the back end of their entire business, right? The technicist part of this equation. They said the 2024 to 2025 time is a potential complete technological change. I am not in software development. So Tevis, let me know if I'm even in the right here, but that could potentially postpone a lot of what they're working on, because it could essentially mean they're working on something that's about to change completely. Is that fair to say in any sense?
Yeah, like if you're going to restructure your back end, you're not going to roll out changes because it's going to be throwaway work, right? Like you don't want to spend a month, even if it is something as small as a month, working on something if you're going to have to change it again a year later, right? Like it's you have that foresight ahead of time, because in a company as big as SoFi and as organized as SoFi, they have a roadmap spanning 3, 5, maybe even more years out from a technology perspective, and their architecture plays a part in that.
Because I think what we're seeing with that Zelle thing literally looks like there was no any designer or anything on that. Like they probably have the brand colors for Zelle there because that is probably by requirement. And then they had literally the functionality buttons, the setting, send, save, split, and then check your activity. It just seems like, okay, get this on because this is a big concern for a lot of people coming over. You have the functionality. We're going to brighten it up here soon. I mean, that is literally the only way that I can think about it, or else, like, I don't know, there's a full-on strike amongst the people who develop and ship product at SoFi for the last little bit.
I think that's the most optimistic viewpoint out there. Like if you plot all the viewpoints on a scale, yours is like super on one side of it, to say,
how
okay,
else do you think about it? Like they just don't have a Figma subscription, just no one is creating any designs for SoFi products?
It could absolutely be the case, but then if so, then it's a serious gap in their product marketing strategy. Like, do you have a communications plan with your client base? Like, you're a public company, right? You should have this stuff figured out. Don't promise Zelle and have people anticipating it for a year or 2 years, or I think it was 3 years plus that people have been waiting for Zelle, and then roll out some lackluster thing. Like if you've already been having them wait 3 years, then 6 months more isn't, the end of the world, but you actually make a good first impression on something and not something so like sloppy.
Well, so I think the Zelle one is a little bit confusing because I think before there was something, Riley honestly was the one that taught me about this, but there was something along the lines of the banking account format that SoFi was using did not fit in with Zelle. It had something to do with the bank account format numbers or something like that. And
yeah, let's not dive into the rabbit hole of like Zelle specifically. I just mean with regards to any product launch. I remember, so Zelle is one, level 1 options is another. I remember we had back in, I think, January of like last year, where they had a reskin or a refresh of their app, and it took them all the way until something like April of last year, May of last year to roll that out, which is like, okay, guys, 4 to 5 months for a refresh. Like their front end changes. And the dark mode was the other one, and it rolled out and it was like in beta where it didn't work on some screens. And so I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out here because
which is
there's something.
crazy because during the time of like COVID, and they dropped, like, the reason what made me like SoFi so much is that they ship product like crazy. They brought in the money account, the invest account, the credit card. Like, they were just partnering and launching at crazy speeds.
Yeah, but like Tanner, so let me pick up on that. This was back in 2019, I think, when they launched the entire like invest platform as we know it, essentially. What happened after that time was two main people left their tech division, and they were essentially key members, if not co-founders, of public.com, which is like a beautiful experience, at least from a user experience perspective. And so it could have absolutely been the case where they lost a lot of key tech talent that was instrumental in building out their first iteration, and maybe a lot of their product culture and their whole, shipping culture. And what they have now is they just have a whole bunch of, I don't know where that came from, but they have a whole bunch of just tech debt. They have these integrations with Galileo and Technisys trying to bring everything in house, trying to go vertical up the stack, and they're just struggling. And I don't know. I just think that that's not talked about enough, especially, and it's fine normally, but it comes to light and it just makes them look bad in these circumstances where now somebody on X just brings up the fact that it's been a year since level 1 options, and it was multi-year since Zelle. And like, I'm willing to wait for a perfect product.
DDI, by the way, that said that.
What's that?
It was DDI that brought that up.
Right. Yeah. Like, if it's going to be a perfect experience that's going to blow all competitors out of the water, like, you have the benefit of being second and in the market because you see the solution that you see the pitfalls of everybody else, and you can just roll something out that's better and more seamless. But don't take twice the amount of time and make it shittier than everything else out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I do worry about for things like level 1 options and stuff. It's like, okay, does this delay mean that we're going to come out with a product that is so good that everyone goes, oh my God? Or is it just going to be a bare bones experience where at least we have it? So,
yeah, like at the end of the day, I think a large, because I want to bring up B-Dub's comment. They had to become profitable. That was key for them, B-Dub says. I get that. You can't really hire new people and invest in R&D and double down when you are focusing on profitability. But at the end of the day, you have like thousands of existing headcount, thousands of existing employees. It's an engineering and product leadership problem. It's a technical leadership problem. They don't have good, or at least it seems like when you compare the 2019 period to the 2024 period, there's a severe disconnect in terms of the actual processes internally that lead to that fast shipping culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else is there on the docket?
Yeah, I think just to wrap up SoFi, and then we can each kind of share something that we're looking at this week. Anthony Noto, of course, bought. So not a shocker. That's what he does. And there's that old saying that there's many reasons to sell, just one reason to buy. He's buying, and I don't think it's solely just to support the stock and improve morale. Like, if you look at his past buys, he's made some money on his buys. That's the plan. So I think that's right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. There's some work to do there for sure. I think that they have not. I've talked probably too much about this in the past, and I don't know. I don't have insider knowledge as far as who is to blame, but there is a failure of execution, absolutely, with the tech side of it for SoFi, not for Technisys, not for Galileo. They're perfectly fine. Phenomenal leadership there. And if at one point one of them comes over to the SoFi side, more fully. I mean, they're integrated with SoFi. I'd be in favor of that, but I won't point fingers. That's for Noto and Co to figure out and resolve, and maybe they're doing that through the Uber guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, why not point fingers though, Roy? Like, you have these executives that are paid millions of dollars to bring results, and everything is going well in terms of the user acquisition side, in terms of the benefits, in terms of the pure banking side, which makes the laggard sides of the business even more, sticking out. Like, I think it should be, I mean, I don't know, like, I think we should have a discussion around who is to blame and what is the core reason of that. I think that's the whole point of this podcast, is for us to go a little bit deeper in terms of the specifics. I mean,
Okay.
I know we've been critiqued in the past for having somewhat of an echo chamber of saying, okay, well, all is sunshine and roses, but at the end of the day, like, I don't know, this stuff irks me out, man, because, like, I don't know, I'm just in that field, and I compare it with places that I've worked, and I've been at publicly traded companies in the past, and it hasn't been like this. And so I know the rigorous standard that SoFi has with regards to talent. I am connected on LinkedIn with a couple of people that do work at SoFi and on their tech side, and I chat with them in terms of the internal processes. And it's just like, it baffles me how they can't execute. And even if they can't execute, they can't go one layer further to that to explain the rationale as to why. Maybe they don't owe it to us, but I kind of want to hear that.
So I actually blame Anthony Noto here. If something goes on for a little while, it could just be there's some missing pieces, not the right personnel. Something needs to be adjusted, but ultimately, as a CEO, the buck stops with you. And these have been ongoing problems for SoFi. They've underperformed as far as execution with the tech, not the tech platform, but within the SoFi actual experience, the app, the features, the invest. And I think Anthony Noto is a very, very good CEO. My read on him is there's probably a couple of things. First is it may have taken them a little bit longer than they should have had to figure out that they did not have the right people in charge of that. And then I think Anthony Noto is capable of decisive action, but if somebody is doing a poor job, but it's somebody that you very much care for, I've been in that position before where I care about somebody. They're doing an absolute terrible job. You do everything you can to try to help that person, and they just don't want to be helped. You have to be decisive at that point and make changes. And I won't name names on that end, but ultimately the buck stops with you when you're the person that's in authority. The job that I have right now, I'm in. I have a lot of authority. I have to wield that very lightly and carefully. And thankfully, everybody that I work alongside and with, they seem very, very capable. So I'm actually very thrilled. But if that wasn't the case, we would need to take some action to try to help them. And then if that doesn't work, you can help them say goodbye. And that hasn't been done. And it's taken far too long.
I blame the interns, the junior staff, the the actual working folk there. They no. Devis, you've applied to be the head of the product development at SoFi or something along those lines. You just got the job. Congratulations. What happens day one? What's got to change? What the heck is wrong?
So, okay. So first of all, it's not the head. It's like one of their many directors. Like, all of their subdivisions have their own individual leadership. Look,
you are Jeremy Rishel.
Oh gosh, I am Jeremy Rishel. Okay.
You're overseeing the overseers.
So number one, first and foremost, you got to start top down in terms of the strategic landscape all the way down to the tactical stuff from a process perspective. I think first and foremost, you have to align on what the business direction is over the next 3 to 5 years, and then translate that to what needs to happen on the technical side of the business for them to execute on that. So if they're going for business accounts, what can we do, and how is our tech architecture set up in such a way that can support that over the long term, so that we can actually start to move some of those big pieces around. And then that's one thing on the execution side of things. The other is I would look at the internal processes around all the way down to the rituals, like what is the frequency that we ship? How are we measuring velocity? How are we measuring efficiencies internally in the company in terms of how do we report? How do we prioritize? How do we validate new functionality? How do we gather feedback? How do we QA and test? There's a lot of stuff. And then you go into the tooling specifically. You talk about what tooling are we using? How can we optimize the tooling? How can we optimize deployments? How can we look at what are we doing from an architecture perspective? All the way through the stack, so you can see, okay, where are the hurdles? Where are we getting held up in terms of our deployment time? How can we reduce deployment time from hours to minutes? And then go from there. And then you tackle the product side, the product communication side, the internal operations side. So on product comms, you say, okay, what are we communicating? When are we communicating it? How are we communicating it? And to whom? Go through that. What part of our roadmap are we communicating? How are we gathering feedback? Do we have some type of advisory board that we're tackling? And how are we tapping into those people? How are we making sure that we're validating what we're launching? How are we gathering feedback on what we're launching? And what are the KPIs that drive into that? Like, there's a lot of stuff.
That
yeah.
I would assume that literally all of this is put into place at SoFi.
Yeah, and absolutely, dude, I would be shocked if most of this was not already put into place at SoFi, because it's a public company. But somewhere in this whole blurb that I spat out is the secret of why they're lagging behind.
It's the interns and it's the junior staff. I'm telling you.
No, I'm serious. And like, it's somewhere in there that it's a lack of process, or a lack of tooling, or a lack of headcount, resourcing, whatever it may be, or frankly, a lack of leadership in terms of implementing those things, or at least identifying those things. If you can fix that, it's one of those things where you're only as strong as that weakest link in that development chain of events. You can actually see some real results. I suspect it's going to be tech debt related, that there's some, legacy infrastructure that they have to get across. But at the end of the day, I think that a lot of that stuff falls on the shoulders of Jeremy Rischel. And if we can't get immediate execution, then we at least should get some transparency.
If you were Jeremy Rischel, would you also sell your shares?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, you can answer it if you want, but I was more looking for a laugh than anything.
I think selling shares is a last resort, man. Like, they have all of the resources to be able to fix this problem, which makes it so frustrating that it's not fixed, because they have no excuses to not fix it.
The problem here with Uncle Bullshit is that I don't think that revenue or profit should be the only priority, okay? Because it's going to lead to a problem with user satisfaction, with stickiness of clients, which are more measured by, LTV or lifetime value, rather than just what the boost is right now. And which, honestly, I think you kind of nailed the hammer on the nail, or whatever, like saying they are really focused on credit and their underwriting and making sure that lending is bringing in the big bucks. But in the same length, like, you're losing users on SoFi Invest. Like, you're seeing some levels of churn, or people saying, hey, I love SoFi, my entire portfolio is with SoFi, but I'm investing in it via Robinhood, right?
And the other thing is, I personally know people that left SoFi Invest for Robinhood because they didn't have level 1 options. If we went back 10 years ago, retail selling options and doing the bull strategy, that was fairly rare. Now, I don't know how common it is, but I know it's a lot more common. And it's not just because I'm in the echo chamber of X platform. It's a lot more commonplace. The tools are there. It's a lot easier. And level 1 options are one of those things where be careful what you do with options. But if you understand level one options, like it's just a nice way to make some extra premium while things are kind of stable. I've enjoyed doing that to good success. But no, and the other thing too is it fuels that narrative that SoFi doesn't know how to execute and ship products like other fintechs. I think they do. I think that they're capable of it. The reason why is we see what they're doing with the Galileo platform, and Technisys is a little bit more of a black box, but we see it there too. So they're capable, but maybe you can't really compare them to like Robinhood, who's in a class of their own. But to the other fintechs, is like, sure, you should be able to compete and do things right along with that, and it should not take an announcement and then 10 years later, like, hey, guess what? Level one options, we got it, guys, and it's just kind of mediocre.
I mean, I think you nailed it, Roy. I mean, you just said it yourself. You can't compare them to Robinhood, and here I am saying, why can't? Like, I know you can't, but why shouldn't we aspire for that? Like,
True.
Robinhood doesn't have some genius Martian out of this planet that is coming up with their product ideas. It's crowdsourced internally. They are gathering it from users. They're a product-driven company. And so why can't SoFi be that? They have the resources to do it. So there's nothing really stopping them. They can absolutely do it. And to whatever his name was, the comment around revenue and profit, like the reason we're talking about
Uncle bullshit.
Uncle bullshit. The reason we're talking about this stuff is because the revenue and the profitability, those are all like lagging indicators. They're after the fact. The reason we look at member acquisition is because that's what's going to forecast what that revenue is in the future. The reason we look at product improvements, feature enhancements, new product lines is because that's what's a leading indicator for the financial metrics that are coming down the line. So it is very important because at the end of the day, like the critique that SoFi is getting from a pure product perspective is that, oh, well, they're not Robinhood and they can never aspire to be Robinhood. And if I were to put them on a scale and I would have legacy financial institutions on one hand, and I would have the Cash Apps and the Robinhood on the other hand, SoFi would be closer towards the legacy financial institutions from just a user experience perspective, not even from their product lines or their banking, like their bank charter in general. And I'm just saying that if they are going to be positioning themselves as a hybrid, valuation, hybrid company, tech company, whatever you want to call it, fintech, they need to have the tech portion at least somewhat figured out. They can't have a snail's pace that is comparable to, a Bank of America and then come out here touting that, oh, look at all of our product offerings. Like, it just doesn't make sense because you do have pure tech plays in the market like Robinhood, who's coming out with 24-hour trading and who's coming out with all of these new enhancements, even all the way down to the user experience on their app just gets refreshed over and over again. And it seems like SoFi, from an app perspective, from a user experience perspective, is just trying to catch up to what Robinhood was like 3 years ago.
I think that there's some comments saying that this isn't the key that SoFi is focusing on, and to an extent, I agree. And for some of the more flashy products or things that would be nice to have, I do agree that SoFi does not need to go after that to have the best, invest platform, right? Especially whenever it comes to like research tools and stuff. Like the brokerage that I have barely has any, but I just do it externally. But as long as I can close out my trades, I'm fine. The problem is, in my opinion, is that level one options are not an add-on. It's a necessity or a complete strategy for a lot of people's portfolios. It's not a nice to have. It's if it doesn't have, I'm not using it, and then I think that goes hand in hand. To be a one-stop shop, you need to have everyone from every corner. And now this is just one idea of the platform, right? There's problems with Relay that people have brought up, that because they're using Plaid, that they're losing a lot of financial institutions, stuff like this. There's issues across the board. I think that the problem is it's undeniable that their time to ship has slowed down since their peak in COVID time, stuff like this, or ever since they've gotten the bank license, or especially Technisys. I don't know. I think that it's worth addressing. I think that management needs to know that that is something that the user wants to, or the investor or user wants to see. And if that isn't their priority, well, what is the priority? Because before you said that that was the big part of your thing, right? Fast selection, content, convenience. That was your whole thing. That's how we differentiate ourselves. Well, where the hell's the fast if you guys don't ship anymore? You know? where we don't have the content because Robinhood has the content, and we've like, I don't know. So I don't think that is necessarily taking your eye off the ball. Go to the last SoFi investor presentation. And if the playbook has changed, you need to put out a new investor presentation. Do another investor day. Do a SoFi investor day. Let us know.
Did you guys see that they changed the referral bonus on SoFi?
That's interesting.
Yeah, throw that up. I thought.
Oh, you have it here? Perfect.
Yeah. I noticed because I think I have 4 or possibly 5 people that I've referred, and I got my first. It's like $75. I'm like, hey, that's great. And then I noticed that they changed it to 50. So what do you think?
So it was $75, then went to $100, and then went to 50, right?
I don't know I don't know when it was 100. That was before my time. Of course, they have to sign up for direct deposit, and I don't know if it matters for on their end. Actually, I should check to see if they changed the amount that you get as a direct depositor. I think that they did. If somebody knows in the chat, you can put that in when you initially sign up for SoFi. But yeah, the referral bonus, at least since I've been a SoFi member for a month, went from 75 to 50 this week. So.
Cool.
For an investment standpoint, I think it's a good thing, and I think this signals that they're getting a lot of new users just because of their marketing. Like, their marketing is one of those things that has gone really, really right. Their user growth has been very, very good, and I think maybe that they're realizing, like, hey, we have fantastic numbers. We don't need to have really high acquisition costs, like still a little bit of something out there in order to actually make this work. And I think what would confirm that is if that direct deposit bonus is actually reduced. And that's something I need to look up. I might look that up while you guys talk, but
I don't think it matters that much, honestly. Like, it's just a lever that they pull. They have a certain margin, and if they want to allocate more spend, then they pull it one direction. If they want to allocate less spend, they pull it another direction. It has an implication on potentially how many users they can acquire on any given quarter, but it changes so frequently that I don't think it is significant. Like, because it's not a static thing. It's 50 today, it's going to be 25 tomorrow, it might be 100, a month from now, just because they want to have a push for members.
Sorry, I'm going through some of these comments. People are getting agitated with our comments, and yeah. But people do agree. I mean, there's certain comments like this that have been floating around. And it has to do with some of the products that I've released lately. I don't know. I think level 1 options are honestly 2025. So the same person that I heard the rumors from about crypto getting taken off the platform, which was ended up being true, that it was going to go to blockchain.com, that said that they were going to focus on automated investing, which you're seeing products like, the private equity funds come out from ARK. The private equity funds come from, what was it? Teminus or whatever it's called. What was that? Someone will say it in the chat that they just recently signed. All those other things have all been true. Maybe the 2025 prediction is also going to be the case.
If I ask you guys, and I mean, we've been covering this company week in and week out since January, since the beginning of the year, what, from a product perspective, what have they launched? Like, on their app user experience, dark mode is the only thing that I can really think of. Can you guys think of anything else?
Sorry, what?
What has SoFi launched over? I mean, we're in June now, so I guess 6 months. First 6 months of this year, what have they launched from a product perspective?
I think they did something with car loans that was a little bit different, not just a partnership.
No, I don't mean like offerings.
Oh.
I mean like in terms of their user experience, how has their app changed? Is there any new
Zelle,
feature? I guess Zelle in dark mode.
dark mode.
Well,
I don't
what
know.
can
It's hard for me to know because I don't have hands-on experience. And also, there's a lot of products. Like this is the one thing that I always try to get across because they do focus on a lot of their lending side. There was a big point where they went from 7-day funding on their personal loans to same-day funding, and that there was multiple days. Like they went from 7 to 5 to 2 to 1 to same day, and there's no press releases during that time. You know, that's a massive difference. And they've actually said that they've closed out on a lot of emergency loans because people needed that money right now. So I think that it's hard to say, you know, eye-catching press release style products. I don't know. SMB funding, I mean, that's a marketplace product. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's 6 months, right? So if you could just double this, I mean, they could be working on a lot of things in the background. And again, that's the very optimistic view that they have this massive R&D team going in the background, working night and day, and they're going to completely revamp the entire experience when we wake up on Monday. That's a very, optimistic view, but I just see it as like, okay, well, they rolled out Zelle, they rolled out dark mode. That's two things that they've been working on for multiple years. What can we expect for the second half of the year from a product perspective?
Yeah, let's look at it this way. Comparing them to fintechs that we follow or that we know. So I can say Robinhood, we all know Robinhood is shipped out a lot more and they're in the process of shipping out a lot more. PayPal, absolutely as well. What about Block? Block seems like it has. I don't follow that as closely. Shift4 has. Nubank has by leaps and bounds.
I mean, don't even compare. No one ships like Nubank, but you're right. Like what is Cash App launching during this time,
Yeah, is there a fintech that at least for the last 6 months, like maybe a firm that has achieved, I don't follow a firm as closely either, so that has not really achieved very much as far as shipping out products or actually soon to ship out products.
Yeah, there are a couple really, really big fintechs that look at Dave, look at Chime, look at Current. What are their new products that they're coming out with constantly? I mean, they're pretty just focused on like Chime's like, hey, you got this secured credit card and you got your checking account. What else do you want? We're going to focus on sales and marketing.
But they are not going for that ecosystem of ecosystems type thing. That the everything app or anything like that. The ones that I mentioned outside of a firm, maybe they seem like they're maybe not shipped out for fully either. But those that are like you have to be shipping products all the time, innovating and staying at least current with people. Not everything needs to be excellent, but there needs to be a lot of excellence. And, SoFi has done a lot of things well, a lot of things. And if they choose to just tweak a few things, they will absolutely be thriving as a company. And I have no doubts in the future. But where they have lagged behind is the product side, specifically for SoFi users.
Look, they've been very active in sales and marketing. That's for dang sure.
There's two things I'll say, right? Number one is the fact that we're holding them to a higher bar. It might sound like I'm coming off pretty harsh, but that's only because SoFi is seen as a disruptor to this legacy space. They're someone who is going to be, disrupting the large financial institutions. They can't do that if they're shipping at the same rate as the legacy financial institutions.
Good point.
The second thing I'll say is that a lot of people might point to things that SoFi has done over the past year, but when you actually put them into the right buckets, you'll realize that SoFi's other business segments really mask the fact that they have had no real product releases. Oh, they had an MBA partnership. Oh, look what they're doing with TGL. It's like, yeah, those are not product initiatives. Those are marketing initiatives. Oh, well, look what they're doing on the banking side. Look at their referrals. Look at the bonuses. It's like, well, those are not pure product initiatives. They're using the cash that they have. They're using the sales and marketing spend that they have to get better promotional offers for you. And so when you look at it like that, it's just when you strip out everything that they've done as a business altogether and you bucket it in terms of what vertical that belongs to, you'll realize that they've done a lot, but not a lot on the product side. And it doesn't seem like that to people looking at it from a surface level, because you get press release after press release every single week. But there's really nothing, in this particular category that we're talking about.
And yet, I want to, we're close to wrapping up. Maybe we're wrapping up on this. It sounds like we're bearish. Like if this is all you knew about, like this is your first time tuning in, it's like, wow, SoFi Weekly, where they rant about how terrible SoFi is. We're all invested. Tevis and I, over the last 2 weeks, have increased our holdings. Tanner, he hates it, and he just goes shift F4. Just kidding. No, he owns a lot of SoFi, a lot. Probably more than Tevis and I combined, to be honest.
Okay.
But it doesn't take much for SoFi to execute, and they have a history of executing well. This is just one of those areas where they're not doing particularly well. We're trying to talk about why. There's talk on X, and there's a couple of mentions of that between Chris Hagar and Tim Sweeney about credit cards. Credit cards is one of those that's a big loss right now. They featured it in this earnings, and if they're able to flip that switch, and I think that they are, they can turn that into a profit engine that is going to dramatically help the business. The lending segment, they've been deliberately cautious. This week, there was news, actually just, I think it was today or yesterday, from the Chicago, is it PMI? No, that's not. I can't remember the name of the index, but it's showing manufacturing levels. What fell to a level that usually indicates a recession. There's some other indicators there. I don't know that we're having a recession, but they're being deliberately cautious with lending. It may be warranted. I think they're being overly cautious. Time will tell. And I will say, Noto has this vision that it's like, if they're a little slower this year, that's fine. They can flip the switch with lending. They have plenty of room to do that and absolutely excel in that business too. And then there's a tech platform stuff that's coming as well. That the large, it's going to take a bit. It's not going to be overnight. There's a lot of good stuff. And the marketing side, we mentioned that already. I still think in the next 2 quarters, there's going to be a quarter where they have 1 million user growth. So they're absolutely killing it on these standpoints. There's some things they're not doing well. And so just us saying, hey, there's some concerns here doesn't mean like we're all bearish and it's going to stay at 7 or go down to 3 or whatever forever.
Yeah, like Roy, I completely agree with the majority of the stuff that you said. I think that it's if we don't call this stuff out, who will, right? Like,
Yeah,
we're the ones who are literally talking about SoFi week in and week out. A lot of the people that were bullish on SoFi 6 months ago, I don't see them tweeting. In fact, they're probably bearish at this point. I know that they are bearish at this point because I'm on Twitter every day. But I think that the difference, in large part, with the analysts, the Gary Gordons of the world, and us, is in large part the amount of grace that we give Anthony Noto as a leader and the amount of trust that we have in him as a leader. Because that execution risk, we discount that because we're saying, okay, Noto has a vision. We trust in Noto's vision, and that's all well and good. And the analysts say, well, past results are not indicative of future ones. I think that is going to be wearing a little thin, and it is starting to wear thin because this is not me being frustrated with like the stock price doing anything. I really am not concerned about that. I'm just seeing the business firing on all other cylinders, number one. And number two, it's because they are not in a vacuum. Competitors are running, competitors are moving faster. And so when you look at a one-to-one offering, it's not the same as it was 12 months ago or 24 months ago. So if I would have had a better chance, at least on the credit card side, at least on the invest side, as they do today. Robinhood released a new credit card. They have these new benefits. 12 months ago, SoFi, let's say if there was 100 people, SoFi might have won 10 and Robinhood might have won 10, and the rest of the market gets the 80. Today, maybe SoFi wins 5 and Robinhood gets 15 or whatever it may be. The point is, if competitors are moving faster than you, it's only a matter of time until you're irrelevant in the market.
It's
And
the
that's driven
PayPal
from
problem.
extreme. And at the end of the day, it is Anthony Noto's thing. Like, he can have a vision and it could be the most beautiful vision in the world. But if you are not scrutinous on your team to get you there, and you get there 5 years late, well, all of a sudden the landscape has changed and it's not as easy as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean that's the PayPal problem, right? Is you were sprinting, got confident, and then you got passed, or at least caught up to. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I'm done talking about SoFi. I wanted to cover another topic there, as well as some other market news. But we're going to lead this into the SoFi After Hours. It's our weekly show just for members. You can check that out either on my channel or on Tevis's. It's on both. You're getting the same content down below. Okay, so if you've already subscribed, there's a button that says join, or it's in our descriptions. You can come join us. Thank you so much.
Live. It's out tomorrow.
It's out tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching. Really do appreciate your time. But bye for now.